During a surprising and deeply touching moment, Hollywood icon Denzel Washington is shown becoming emotional and crying during a live television appearance after getting an unexpected phone call from the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. The words spoken during that call shocked the audience and viewers around the globe. This remarkable moment shows that real leadership and mutual respect can go beyond boundaries, cultures, and even stardom. It was meant to be a normal, late-night talk show. The audience applauded as Denzel Washington walked onto the stage, smiling, composed, and legendary. The host welcomed him enthusiastically, joking and showing scenes from his newest role. Yet behind Denzel's warm laughs, there was a quiet look in his eyes, like his thoughts were elsewhere. Midway into the show, the host grinned and said, "We've got a surprise for you tonight, Denzel, a live call from someone far away." Denzel blinked, confused. What kind of surprise? The screen behind him turned on. A flag appeared, Burkina Faso. Whispers of confusion spread across the room. Then a voice came on, firm, respectful, and soft. "Good evening, Mr. Washington. This is Ibrahim Traoré, President of the Transition of Burkina Faso." Denzel froze. The room went quiet. For the first time in the show's history, only one man's breath was heard. Nobody, absolutely nobody, predicted what followed. The audience looked on. Denzel's hands shook while the president spoke. His English, touched with French, was calm yet emotional. "You don't know me, Mr. Washington, but when I was 14, I was a barefoot boy in Burkina Faso. I saw you in glory. I saw a black man, not begging, not afraid, but powerful, and crying for justice." Denzel blinked fast. "That night," he said, "I told my mother, one day I'll fight for people too, just like him." The host looked shocked. Denzel put his hand over his mouth. Ibrahim continued, "Years later, when the people of my country needed someone to take a stand, I remembered your courage, your words, your eyes. I stood not because I had no fear, but because I had seen what bravery looked like in you." The room was still. Denzel slowly lowered his hand. His eyes filled with tears. "You're saying I helped form a president?" "No, sir," Ibrahim answered. "You helped form a man who wouldn't bow to injustice." A single tear rolled down Denzel's face. "Thank you, my brother." The crowd quietly gasped. But what the president said next was even more surprising. Denzel leaned closer to the screen. The host sat frozen, eyes wide. Then Ibrahim spoke. "Again, today I speak not only as a president, but as a man who owes a debt. In Burkina Faso, when someone saves your soul, we don't forget." Denzel shook his head humbly. "No, please." "I didn't, Mr. Washington," Traoré said. "I officially invite you to be honored in Ouagadougou. But more than that, I want to name a leadership school after you. A place where our youth will learn to stand proud, just like I learned from watching you." The crowd gasped again. The host whispered, "Wow." Denzel's voice trembled. "Mr. President, I don't deserve that." Traoré smiled softly. "That's exactly why you do." The screen went black as the call ended. And there, on national television, in front of millions, Denzel Washington put his face in his hands and cried, not from sorrow, but from the powerful truth that one life can echo across seas and generations. But this was just the start. Within 24 hours, Denzel was getting ready to travel. Burkina Faso was calling, and what waited there would change everything. Denzel didn't sleep that night. He kept repeating Ibrahim Traoré's words in his mind. His eyes were still red, long after the cameras had stopped. By morning, social media had exploded. Denzel was trending in more than 20 countries. Fans, reporters, and global leaders praised the emotional moment. Some even said it was the most powerful moment on TV in decades. But while the world responded, Denzel quietly packed his bags, not for a film, but for something that felt sacred. He booked the soonest flight to Burkina Faso. No entourage, no spotlight. Just him, a small bag, and emotions he couldn't explain. As the plane lifted, he looked out the window and whispered, "I don't know what I'm stepping into, but I know I need to go." Back in Ouagadougou, President Traoré stood at a palace window, gazing at the runway far away. His aides asked, "Should we alert the media?" Traoré shook his head. No cameras, no speeches, just truth. Something powerful was about to happen. Neither man knew that within 48 hours, they would both cry again, this time together. When Denzel's flight landed, there were no reporters, no red carpet, just quiet. A black SUV waited on the tarmac. One man stood beside it, dressed plainly, no military badges. It was him, President Ibrahim Traoré. Denzel stepped out slowly. Their eyes met. No words were needed. They hugged, not as star and president, but as two men whose lives had unexpectedly connected across continents. "I'm honored you came," Ibrahim said. Denzel smiled softly. "I didn't come as a celebrity. I came as a brother." The SUV carried them through dusty roads, past neighborhoods and markets. Barefoot children waved as the car passed. No one knew who was inside. They stopped at a small home made of sun-faded clay and tin. "This was my home," Traoré said gently. He opened the door. Inside, no guards, no luxury, just old pictures, a woven mat and silence. Then Traoré gave Denzel a crumpled photo. In it, a young boy held the hand of an older woman. "She raised me when my parents worked day and night. She fed me, bathed me, and told me stories about strength. Then, softly, he added, and she's still alive." They drove for another hour along curving village paths. Nobody said much. Denzel looked closely at the photo of the woman, a broad smile, kind eyes, and a strength that only years could provide. "Where is she now?" Denzel asked. Traoré's jaw stiffened. "She still works, cleaning schoolrooms in a rural area." Denzel slowly turned his head. "Achi 85. The president nodded. "She never asked anyone for help. She'd say, 'God gave me legs, I'll use them till he takes.'" Then, when they got there, the school appeared old, but full of energy. Kids were running barefoot, using sticks to draw in the dirt. Then she appeared, bent with age, yet proud, holding a broom, the same woman from the picture. Denzel stepped out of the car, frozen in place. Traoré moved toward her. She looked up and tears filled her eyes. "Ibrahim," she whispered. He rushed into her arms. "Mama Hawa," he said, and they cried together. Then Denzel came forward. She looked at him and gasped. Her hands began to shake. You're him," she said, touching his face. In one quiet schoolyard in Burkina Faso, time seemed to freeze. 3 people, 3 journeys, one shared moment that would touch hearts everywhere. But what followed next would move the whole nation. Mama Hawa sat between Denzel and President Traoré under the shade of a big baobab tree next to the school. Her hands were calloused, her back slightly bent, but her voice was still full of warmth. She told stories about young Ibrahim, how he used to cry in her arms on cold nights, how he once gave her his only piece of mango so she wouldn't go hungry. Denzel listened with gentle eyes, a side the world rarely saw. Then she reached into the pocket of her old apron. "I've kept this all these years," she said. She pulled out a faded, folded paper. It was a child's writing. It read, "One day I will be a leader and I will find you, Mama, I promise." Traoré gasped. He remembered he had written it at age 9 on her birthday, after she gave him her only piece of bread. Denzel wiped a tear away. She held on to hope. That's the strongest kind of faith. Suddenly, a small student came running, barefoot, and laughing, holding a broken plastic ball. "Mama, will you play?" And she did. Still barefoot, still smiling. But something shifted inside Denzel. He was no longer just a visitor. He had discovered something sacred. That evening, Denzel and Traoré returned to the presidential palace, but things were different. Both were quiet, thoughtful. Then Traoré stood up. "I want to show you something I've never shown anyone outside my family," he said. He led Denzel through a private hallway, stone walls, soft footsteps, no guards. At the end was a thick wooden door. He unlocked it. Inside was a small, dim room filled with old books, journals, maps, and one big framed photo. It was Mama Hawa and a boy, young Ibrahim, both laughing. "This is my real treasure room," Traoré said. Denzel was speechless. Traoré picked up an old notebook. Inside were handwritten dreams, his first visions for Burkina Faso. All of this began with her. "I'm here because she believed I was worth something, even when I had nothing," he said. Denzel gently touched the page. "You lead like a son who remembers what love is." Traoré nodded. "And I want the world to know, leadership isn't about power. It's about gratitude." The room went silent. Two remarkable men. One shared purpose, to honor the woman who helped raise a president. Then Denzel had an idea, one that would surprise everyone, especially Mama Hawa. At sunrise. Denzel sat outside on the palace terrace, watching the sun rise over Ouagadougou. Mama's face, her laugh, her strength kept replaying in his thoughts. Ibrahim joined him. "I had a thought," Denzel said, sipping tea. "Let's give her the recognition she never asked for." Traoré smiled slowly. "I hoped you'd say that." That afternoon, quietly, with no media alerts, they went back to the village school with a small group. Kids gathered. Teachers stood silently. Mama looked confused. "What's happening?" Then Traoré knelt down before her, holding a small velvet box. Inside was a gold medal, engraved with her name and the nation's seal. "For your service to this country, as a mother, a teacher, and a guardian of hope," he said, his voice trembling. The children started clapping. Then Denzel stepped up, tears in his eyes. "And from the world of cinema," he said, pulling out an envelope. "I talked to my producer this morning. Your story will be turned into a film. Every penny will go towards building schools in your name." Mama Hawa dropped to her knees, crying. She had spent a lifetime giving, and now she was receiving. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. 3 days later, Denzel Washington went back to Los Angeles for a major live TV interview on one of America's top talk shows. It was meant to be light-hearted, red carpets, new movies, laughter. But behind his smile, something had changed. When the cameras started rolling and the host asked about his trip to Africa, Denzel paused. "Can I take a call?" he asked. The host, confused, laughed. Live, Denzel nodded. The crew scrambled. Then, on the screen behind him, President Ibrahim Traoré appeared, live from Burkina Faso. The studio fell completely silent. "Mr. Washington," Traoré said warmly, "your visit reminded us that kindness isn't limited by borders." Then he added, "You honored my people. Now I want to honor someone you inspired." He pointed next to him. Mama Hawa appeared on the screen, holding a phone, her eyes glowing. The audience gasped. Denzel's lips quivered. His hand shook. Traoré continued, "You reminded the world that even those with the loudest voices must sometimes stop to listen." Then Mama Hawa whispered in soft, broken English, "Thank you, my son." Denzel bowed his head and cried during the live broadcast, and so did millions of people watching across the globe. Within moments, the clip went viral. It was no longer just about films. It had become something far more meaningful. Twitter lit up. Mama Hawa, President of Hearts. Denzel breaks silence. From Paris to Johannesburg, Tokyo to Atlanta, people began sharing personal memories, stories about the women who raised and shaped them. An old picture of Traoré hugging Mama Hawa in her kitchen turned into a symbol. Major news networks paused their political reporting to air the moment. Denzel breaking down Traoré, speaking softly, Mama Hawa simply saying, "Thank you." CNN described it as the most human thing ever captured on live television. But then, something even more unexpected began to happen. Donations began pouring in. A modest GoFundMe page, quietly started by one of the village school students, had a target of $10,000. Within 2 hours, it had passed $1 million. People weren't just watching, they were moved, and they responded. In a world so often divided, this tale of a soldier's vow, a mother's love, and an actor's tears was uniting total strangers. Yet, while the world was watching, Mama Hawa's health was declining, and she had one final request. By the 6th day of this unforgettable week, Mama Hawa's body had grown tired. She had spent days smiling, embracing people, speaking to presidents and celebrities. But her body was growing quieter, and she knew it. So she asked to see Denzel and Ibrahim alone. They entered her small room in the village. No cameras, no microphones, just the three of them. "I'm old," she said gently, her voice weak but firm. "I won't live to see the next planting season." Both of them shook their heads, pleading for her to rest, to stay strong, but she smiled. "I have no fear. My only wish is that no child in Burkina Faso ever goes to school on an empty stomach." A tear slid down Traoré's face. She reached for Denzel's hand. "You tell stories that matter. The world listens to you. Tell this story." Then she took a small scarf from beneath her pillow, faded, frayed, and carefully sewn. It was the same scarf young Ibrahim once used to tie around her arm while pretending to be president. She placed it in Traoré's hands. "My first medal," she whispered, and then she spoke her final words. "Take care of one another." They both embraced her as she gently closed her eyes. Outside, the sun was rising, and so was her legacy, president. Ibrahim Traoré stood silently beside Mama Hawa's bed, still holding the scarf. The air smelled of shea butter and old books. Denzel knelt at her feet, head bowed, shoulders shaking. Then Traoré softly said, "She gave me everything when I had nothing, and now I must give everything back." He turned toward Denzel and lifted the scarf like a royal banner. "We will." build something in her name. A school, a garden, a future. Denzel looked up, eyes puffy. Yes, yes, we will. I'll be part of it. Outside, villagers had gathered. Somehow, they knew she had passed. Traoré stepped out, lifted the scarf, and said, "Mama has gone to rest, but her spirit will nourish generations." The crowd broke into tears. In less than 12 hours, the news had spread across the world. Burkina Faso declares National Day of mourning for Mama Hawa. Later that night, at a press briefing, Traoré made another vow. Every child in Burkina Faso will know her name. And Denzel, he quietly cancelled all his upcoming media appearances. He said, "I've played kings and generals, but today I serve a mother." The following morning, the sun rose calmly over Burkina Faso. In the village square, a plain wooden casket stood. No gold statues, no velvet ropes, just flowers, drums, and silence. President Traoré walked behind the coffin, alone, carrying only one thing, the scarf. Denzel followed behind, his suit wrinkled from lack of sleep, eyes swollen. They didn't exchange words. They didn't need to dot from across the globe. Leaders sent tributes. But the most touching was a note from a small boy in Niger. He had walked barefoot for 2 days just to deliver a message. "Thank you for raising our president." As the coffin was lowered into the earth, the village sang. Children cried. Elders held their hearts. A bird landed on the grave and did not fly away. Then, something happened that no one saw coming. Denzel stepped forward. He reached into his pocket and took out a necklace. It had belonged to his father. He whispered, "She reminds me of him. Strong, quiet, and never asked for anything." He placed the necklace on the grave and said, "Goodbye, Mama." Even the cameras stopped filming because some moments are too sacred for screens. That night, President Ibrahim Traoré and Denzel Washington sat side by side under the stars on a straw mat. There were no words, just the crackling of a small fire between them. They didn't need speeches. They had just said goodbye to the woman who shaped both of their lives, one with her hands, the other with her soul. Then Traoré said softly, "Denzel, this week I remembered who I am." Denzel nodded and said, "Me too." In the stillness of that night, they made a promise, not one written on paper, but sealed through pain, thankfulness, and belief. Within hours, they began forming the Mama Hawa Foundation, a shared effort to deliver food, education, and emotional care to children in remote areas of Burkina Faso and beyond. And Denzel, he pledged to donate his entire next movie salary to the cause. But the strongest impact didn't come from money. It came from a short video Denzel released just before heading home, looking directly into the camera. He said, "If one woman in a tiny village can raise a future president and touch the heart of a Hollywood actor, then what's stopping the rest of us?" The video received 100 million views in just one day, and the world held its breath, waiting for what would follow. 3 days after the funeral, Denzel returned to the US. He did it quietly, no press, no attention. But the producers of his long-scheduled live talk show appearance insisted it had to go ahead. It had already been advertised across major channels. Denzel agreed, but made one request: "Let me speak from the heart, no script." The set was bright. The audience was excited. People expected casual talk, maybe a funny story or two. But when the host asked, "Denzel, you've seen the world. What's one experience that truly changed your soul?" Denzel didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled something from his coat. It was the scarf. Then, softly into the microphone. He said, "President Ibrahim Traoré called me, and I couldn't breathe after what he reminded me. That real greatness doesn't come from awards. It lives in mothers who clean your wounds, and in presidents who never forget them." The host, looking puzzled, asked, "And what exactly did he say?" Denzel's eyes began to water. He slowly took out his phone, played a voice recording, and the room listened to Traoré's voice. "Thank you for honoring a woman the world ignored, but who created a man the world now remembers." And with that, Denzel broke down on live television. The broadcast spread rapidly. Kitchens fell silent. Newsrooms paused. Social media froze. The clip of Denzel crying, holding the scarf, while playing Traoré's voice, became the most shared. "Video of the year," comments flooded in. "I've never cried this much over a stranger's love. This made me want to call my mum right now. Who is Ibrahim Traoré? Because the world needs more leaders like him." All across Africa, stories of forgotten mothers began emerging. In the US, youth groups arranged candlelight vigils to honor Mama Hawa. But in Burkina Faso, something even more incredible began. Children in small villages started writing letters, not to Santa, not to celebrities, but to President Traoré. One letter read, "If I work hard like you, will I also make my mother proud?" And Denzel, he remained silent after the interview until the next morning. He posted a photo on Instagram of a single tree in Burkina Faso. The caption read, "She watered roots that now hold up nations." No hashtags, no promotion, just truth. And the world watched and wept. Exactly 1 week after that unexpected phone call, a statue was quietly unveiled in Ouagadougou. It wasn't a figure of a general, nor a king, nor a president. It was a woman, holding a child's hand, wrapped in a familiar scarf. The bronze plaque beneath it read, "To Mama Hawa, the mother of all leaders." President Ibrahim Traoré stood before it, with Denzel Washington beside him. Both were holding candles. Neither spoke, because some endings are too sacred for words. That night, a soft wind moved through the city. Villagers said they could feel Mama Hawa's spirit brushing against their faces. And in Hollywood, Denzel made one last move. He launched a new scholarship called the Hawa Fund, in collaboration with the Burkina Faso government, a scholarship for girls from rural Africa who dream of leading. When the media asked for a statement, Denzel simply said, "Some phone calls change your schedule. This one changed my soul." Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, made you cry, made you reflect, or reminded you of someone you cherish, please like, subscribe, and comment below with, "I believe in the power of love and leadership. Your words matter." Let's help stories like this reach the world. Let's remind people that greatness isn't about fame, it's about heart. Share this with someone who needs hope today. And never forget, one kind act can echo across generations. Thank you for watching.